The desert world stretched endlessly under two suns, a harsh glare bouncing off jagged rock formations and shimmering dunes. Ghost moved like a shadow across the barren landscape, his boots silent against the cracked ground. He had earned his name long ago, not because he disappeared easily, but because no enemy could predict his next move. Tonight, the humans feared him, the aliens hunted him, and he moved through the chaos as if it belonged to him. He paused atop a ridge, scanning the valley below. Smoke rose from the remains of what had once been a transport convoy. Alien weapons littered the sand, strange crystalline shards humming faintly in the heat. Ghost had taken down the patrol silently, leaving no trace of himself beyond the destruction he had caused. For humans, his survival was a miracle. For aliens, he had become a living nightmare. He crouched behind a jagged rock and checked his gear. His rifle was modified beyond recognition, but it was his mind that made him deadly. Ghost was no soldier in the traditional sense. He was a strategist, a thinker, and a master of adaptation. Every mission he survived added layers to his reputation. Every time someone tried to trap him, he turned it against them. A soft hum carried on the wind, and Ghost froze. Not the hum of alien patrols or the engines of distant hovercrafts. This was something else. He could feel it before he heard it. A presence. He scanned the horizon with his sharp eyes. Between the jagged peaks, a figure floated, suspended by some invisible force. She was tall, her form elegant, her hair flowing in the unnatural wind of the desert night. Even from a distance, her eyes seemed to pierce him. Ghost didn't lower his weapon. Humans had long since learned to fear the unknown, but curiosity burned just as fiercely in him. There was something different about her, something that did not fit the pattern of any hunter or enemy he had faced. She spoke, her voice melodic yet commanding, carrying across the valley without raising her hands. "You run well, soldier, but running will not save you forever." Ghost's pulse quickened, but his posture remained calm. "Who are you?" he called back. "The alien sent you?" "No," she said, stepping closer. The sand rippled unnaturally beneath her feet, as if she were moving on her own energy. "I am not here to kill you. I am here to claim you." The word sent a shiver down Ghost's spine. Not many spoke that way to humans, even alien royalty. "Claim me?" he asked, his voice steady despite the creeping tension. "Why would someone like you want me?" Her eyes glowed faintly. "Because your fate is tied to mine. The hunters believe they can destroy you, but they do not understand the bond already formed between us. You are chosen." Ghost frowned. Humans did not believe in destiny, and Ghost himself relied on logic, skill, and cunning. Yet something about her presence made him uneasy. Not fear exactly, but a deep, strange awareness, as if the world itself had shifted and he was suddenly part of a story larger than himself. Before he could respond, a shriek pierced the air. Alien hunters, sleek and relentless, poured over the dunes like a living tide. Their armor reflected the twin suns' light, and their weapons pulsed with energy that could melt steel. They had been tracking him for weeks, closing in faster than he expected. Ghost cursed softly. "So much for a quiet night," he muttered. He rolled to the side as a blast scorched the ridge where he had been crouching moments ago. The hunters were fast, trained, and merciless, but so was he. He moved like water through the battlefield, using the rocks, the ruins, and the desert itself as cover. He could feel her presence watching him from afar, guiding, observing. It was unsettling, yet strangely reassuring. He did not know her motives, yet the bond she spoke of resonated with something deep inside him. The hunters split, trying to encircle him. Ghost calculated the angles, the distances, and the timing. Humans had an edge no alien could replicate: unpredictability. He ducked behind a crumbled wall, pulled a device from his belt, and hurled it into the path of the hunters. A brilliant flash and a wave of kinetic energy sent them sprawling. He didn't wait to see the results. He moved. The desert was his ally. Ghost used every trick, every tactic learned in years of impossible missions. He leaped across sand dunes, rolled under alien fire, and vanished into the darkness. Every move was precise, every step calculated to keep him alive. And yet there was a thrill in the chase, a reminder that he was more than just a soldier. He was a survivor, a human against odds that no one else could endure. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The hunters were relentless, but Ghost's knowledge of terrain, human improvisation, and sheer willpower allowed him to slip through their grasp time and again. Exhaustion began to gnaw at him, but the presence of the alien princess, her claim on him, kept his mind sharp. It was as if some invisible thread guided him, whispering which path to take, which rock to hide behind, which shadows to trust. Finally, he paused atop another ridge, breathing heavily. Below, the hunters regrouped, their formation broken but persistent. Ghost wiped sweat from his brow. He knew he could not fight them all forever. This was a trap, yes, but one he intended to turn against them. A sudden sound drew his attention. The princess appeared beside him, her movement so silent he barely heard her approach. She did not speak immediately, only watched him with those piercing eyes. "You have survived," she said finally, her voice soft but carrying weight. "And yet, they will not stop. They cannot see what you are, what you can become." "I'm still alive," Ghost replied, though his voice betrayed his exhaustion. "That doesn't mean they'll give up. And it doesn't mean I trust you." She smiled faintly. "Trust is not required. But understand this. You are more than a soldier. You are a symbol, a turning point. The hunters will never take you. Not fully, not now. And certainly not before you understand the bond we share." Ghost studied her carefully. Humans were not meant to believe in destiny, but something about her presence made him question everything he thought he knew. He was alone, hunted, and yet not entirely without allies, not entirely without hope. A sudden roar erupted behind him. One of the hunters had flanked the ridge, closing in faster than Ghost expected. Reflexively, he spun and fired. The alien fell back, stunned. But Ghost didn't pause. He grabbed her hand. "You lead," he said, surprising even himself. She nodded. Together they leapt into the darkness, moving over rocks and sand with a grace that seemed impossible. Ghost felt the strange bond strengthening, a tug at his mind he could not resist. With her guidance, he was faster, sharper, and more precise. The hunters could not anticipate this human-alien alliance. By dawn, the desert lay silent. Ghost and the princess reached a hidden ravine, shielded by natural rock formations. He collapsed to his knees, gasping, and she knelt beside him, her presence calm, grounding, and unsettling all at once. "You survive," she said again, almost like a mantra. "And now you will understand. The hunters are not your only enemies. They are also your guides. Every challenge, every danger, is part of what will make you stronger." Ghost didn't respond immediately. He studied her, this alien princess who claimed his soul without permission, who had watched him survive against impossible odds. He wanted answers, explanations, a reason he could understand with human logic. But for now, all he had was the strange certainty that his life had changed forever. As the suns rose over the horizon, casting gold and red across the desert, Ghost felt a new fire ignite within him. He was hunted. He was claimed. And yet, he was alive. And that alone was enough for now. The princess stood, looking toward the distant mountains where more hunters waited, unaware that the two of them were no longer just prey. They were a force to be reckoned with, a symbol of human cunning, resilience, and unpredictability. Ghost rose to his feet, dusting the sand from his armor. He was tired, yes, but he had survived worse. He looked at the princess, their eyes meeting, and for the first time in a long while, he smiled faintly. "Let them come," he said. "I'm ready." The princess's smile widened, faintly, almost imperceptibly. "So am I." And together, human and alien, hunted and claimed, they stepped into the rising sun, ready to face whatever came next. The hidden ravine offered shelter, but it was not safety. Ghost could feel it. The hunters were relentless, and they had no intention of allowing him to vanish from their sight. Even with the alien princess by his side, the odds were stacked against him. Yet something had shifted. The psychic thread she spoke of was real, subtle, but insistent, tugging at the edges of his mind. He could not explain it, could not control it, and yet he felt guided. "You rest," she said softly, her voice calm, carrying a weight that made Ghost pause. "Your body must be ready, but your mind must be awake." The hunters do not fight like humans. They plan, predict, and strike with precision. "I don't need lessons on survival," Ghost muttered, though his voice lacked its usual sharpness. He was tired, the weight of the chase pressing on his chest. "I survive because I adapt. That's what humans do," she smiled, a faint curl of lips that was both unsettling and reassuring. "And yet you do not see the greater game. You are being hunted not just because you survived, but because you are necessary. Your skills, your courage, your choices, they are threads in a tapestry you do not yet understand." Ghost studied her, still suspicious. Humans were not meant to believe in destiny, and Ghost was nothing if not a human. But he had seen impossibilities happen before, and this bond, this pull he could not ignore, was no ordinary occurrence. He was tired of explanations. He wanted results. "Then tell me what I need to do," he said finally. "Not riddles. Not poems, not prophecies. Actions." The princess nodded. "Actions, yes. Follow me." They moved deeper into the ravine, a twisting maze of rock formations that provided both cover and complexity. The princess's movements were precise, almost effortless. She stepped lightly, her presence commanding, yet subtle. Ghost noticed the small changes in the air, the faint shifts in energy that seemed to follow her like invisible currents. Humans did not sense these things, but Ghost's instincts honed over countless missions, picked up on them. They came to a small alcove, hidden by natural stone and shadow. Inside, the air was cooler, quieter, untouched by the harsh sun above. The princess gestured to a device, strange and crystalline, pulsing faintly with light. "This will protect you," she said. "It dampens their tracking signals. They can hunt, but they cannot pinpoint you here." Ghost examined it. "Looks like alien tech. How does it work?" "Focus," she said simply. "Let it guide your mind, not just your body. The bond between us amplifies its effect. You will feel it." He hesitated. Humans had long relied on tools, weapons, and strategy, but this was different. He could sense her power, the pull on his thoughts, subtle but persistent. It was not control, exactly. It was connection. And that connection made him stronger, faster, sharper. "Fine," he said finally. "Let's see if it works." The princess reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist. The touch was electric, a spark that ran deep into his mind. Ghost's heart quickened, not with fear, but with awareness. He could feel her guidance, a whisper in his thoughts directing him, hinting at paths through the ravine, warning him of unseen dangers. They did not speak again for hours. The bond was silent, but powerful. Ghost moved as if guided by instinct, and she watched him, ensuring he did not falter. For the first time, he allowed himself to relax, to trust, even if only a fraction. Night fell, and with it came the distant hum of alien engines. The hunters were still out there, relentless as ever. Ghost could hear them in the distance, sense their movements, predict their strategies. The bond, the device, and his instincts formed a single thread of awareness, guiding his every step. "Why me?" he asked finally, breaking the silence. "Why claim me? Why not someone else?" The princess paused, her eyes reflecting the dim starlight. "Because you are human. Because you fight not just with strength, but with mind and heart. Because humans survive in ways no other species can. I need that. And you need me, whether you know it or not." Ghost frowned. Humans did not need aliens, psychic threads, or prophecies. Humans relied on action, courage, and cunning. Yet as he watched her, he realized something unsettling. She had seen him, not just his body, not just his reputation, but his essence. And in that recognition, he felt acknowledged, not admired, not feared, but understood. Before he could respond, a sudden scream shattered the quiet. Ghost spun, rifle ready. Shadows moved across the ravine's edge, hunters, fast and deadly, descending upon them. They had found the trail, bypassing all defenses. Ghost cursed under his breath. "I told you they wouldn't stop." The princess stepped forward, her hands glowing faintly with energy. A shield formed between them and the hunters, shimmering with light and force. The hunters fired, alien weapons streaking through the air, but the shield absorbed every strike. Ghost realized he had underestimated her power. She was not just guiding him, she was protecting him, amplifying his survival. The hunters hesitated, their coordinated advance faltering. Ghost used the moment. With agility born from years of impossible missions, he darted forward, striking at the flanks of the enemy. The hunters were trained, ruthless and precise, but humans had one edge aliens could not calculate: unpredictability. Ghost moved like water, flowing around them, striking when they least expected it. The princess watched, her focus unwavering. Every move he made she anticipated, subtly guiding his actions. The bond between them was no longer theoretical. It was a force. Ghost felt it deep within him, an unspoken synchronization that made him almost unstoppable. Hours passed in a blur of motion. Ghost and the princess fought, hid, and maneuvered through the ravine with deadly precision. The hunters adapted, but so did Ghost. Every ambush, every trap was turned against them. By dawn, the hunters were wounded, frustrated, and scattered. Ghost collapsed against a rock, breathing heavily. The princess knelt beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did well," she said softly. "But this is only the beginning. They will return, stronger and wiser, and you must be ready." "I don't like relying on this," he said, gesturing vaguely to the bond that connected them. "Humans survive on skill, not luck or psychic threads." "This is not luck," she replied. "This is potential, awakened. Humans survive because you can adapt, you can learn, you can endure. But even the greatest human can be broken without guidance. I offer that guidance, not control, but partnership." Ghost studied her. Humans were stubborn, independent, and resilient, and he was no exception. Yet as he looked into her eyes, he felt the truth of her words. He was not alone. He had never been truly alone, not since he had survived impossible missions and countless hunts. But now, with her claim on him, with the bond binding them, he was something more. A new sound echoed through the ravine, distant but unmistakable. More hunters were coming, faster than before. Ghost's jaw tightened. Exhaustion threatened to slow him, but the bond thrummed through him, urging him forward. He rose to his feet, steadying himself. "Let them come," he said quietly. "We'll be ready." The princess nodded, standing beside him. "Together," she said. They moved as one, human and alien, bonded not by choice but by fate. Ghost had survived impossible odds before, relying only on skill and cunning. Now he realized survival was more than that. It was connection. It was trust. It was the spark that made humans unpredictable, unstoppable, and alive. As they prepared to face the hunters again, Ghost allowed himself a small, quiet thought. He was ready. Not just to survive, but to fight, to endure, and to prove that humans could rise against any enemy, alien or otherwise. And with the princess at his side, he felt a strange certainty. No matter what came next, they would face it together. The hunters might be relentless, the universe indifferent, but Ghost had something no one could take from him: human ingenuity, human resilience, and now, a bond that made him stronger than ever. The desert stretched endlessly before them, the first light of dawn painting the rocks in gold and red. Somewhere out there, the hunters were regrouping. Somewhere out there, danger waited. But Ghost no longer feared it. He had survived worse. He had allies. And above all, he had purpose. The princess touched his arm lightly, almost imperceptibly, and Ghost felt the pull again. The psychic thread. The claim. The bond. It was no longer a whisper in his mind, but a guiding force, steady and undeniable. He had resisted, doubted, and questioned, but now he understood. This was more than survival. This was a partnership. And in the rising sun, Ghost smiled faintly, letting the warmth wash over him. He was hunted. He was claimed. And he was ready. The hunt was far from over. But for the first time in his life, Ghost did not feel alone. The desert's heat burned under the twin suns, but Ghost felt only the focus coursing through him. Every movement, every choice, every breath was deliberate. The princess walked beside him, her presence a constant, silent guide. The bond between them had strengthened, subtle threads connecting mind and instinct, guiding him even as he retained control. He could feel her awareness, anticipating dangers he had not yet seen. It was strange, unnerving, and somehow comforting all at once. "We need to strike at the hunter's base," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "If we wait for them to come to us, they will not hesitate to destroy everything in their path." "You are no longer just surviving. You must fight." Ghost studied her. Humans were not reckless, but they were bold. He had learned over the years that sometimes the only way to survive was to take the fight to those who hunted you. "And what makes you think we can succeed?" he asked, ever cautious. Her eyes glowed faintly in the heat, as if reflecting some inner fire.
"Because you are human."
"And humans do not fight like anyone else. You adapt. You improvise. You take risks that others cannot even imagine. That is why I claimed you." He clenched his jaw, a mixture of pride and disbelief in his expression. Humans had been underestimated for centuries, written off by other species as weak or illogical, and yet, time and again, humans had proven that their combination of intelligence, courage, and unpredictability could overcome forces far superior in strength and technology. Ghost was proof of that truth. They moved through the desert, carefully avoiding patrols, using shadows and terrain to mask their approach. The princess guided him with subtle gestures, small shifts of energy that he could feel in his mind. It was as though the desert itself was bending to her will, shaping paths and revealing hidden opportunities. Ghost had faced impossible odds before, but the precision of her guidance added a layer of certainty he had never experienced. They reached a ridge overlooking a sprawling alien compound. Towers of crystalline metal shimmered in the sunlight, alien guards patrolling in synchronized precision. Ghost's eyes narrowed as he studied the patterns, calculating timing, angles, and weaknesses. The hunters had grown arrogant in their pursuit, believing that their superior technology and numbers guaranteed victory. They had not counted on humans' ability to observe, adapt, and strike unpredictably. "We go in through the eastern gate," Ghost said, tracing a path in the sand with his finger. "Minimal exposure. 2 guards per tower. Rotations every 23 seconds. We can disable surveillance and get inside." The princess nodded. "And I will mask your presence while we move. The bond strengthens our camouflage." "They will see nothing unusual until it is too late." Ghost allowed himself a brief smile. Humans often relied on ingenuity, improvisation, and clever traps. Combined with her alien abilities, they were becoming more than just hunted. They were predators in their own right. Night fell, and the desert cooled. Shadows became allies, stretching long and hiding their movements. Ghost moved like a wraith, silent and deliberate. The princess followed, her glowing eyes reflecting the dim starlight, guiding him step by step. Every motion was synchronized, instinct blending with conscious strategy. It was a strange feeling, relying on someone else's awareness, yet it made him sharper, faster, and more precise. They reached the perimeter of the compound. Sensors hummed faintly, a network of energy barriers and surveillance systems designed to detect the smallest disturbance. Ghost knelt, studying the layout.
"I can disable the first layer,"
he murmured. "But the inner systems will need your help." The princess extended her hand, and a wave of energy pulsed outward. The sensors flickered, then went dark. Ghost moved forward, slipping through the perimeter with ease, the bond between them guiding his steps, preventing miscalculations. Inside, the compound was a maze of corridors and observation rooms. Alien technology thrummed with power, and the hum of machinery filled the air. Ghost had faced tight corridors and complex facilities before, but this was different. He was not alone. The princess's presence strengthened his awareness, warning him of guards, traps, and surveillance. They moved quickly, silently, taking down patrols with precise strikes. Ghost marveled at the efficiency of their teamwork. Humans were resourceful, but the princess's abilities amplified his effectiveness. Every guard they incapacitated, every door they bypassed, brought them closer to the heart of the hunter's operations. At last, they reached the central control hub. Screens displayed maps, patrol routes, and communications. Ghost's mind raced. This was the intelligence he needed, not just to survive, but to turn the hunter's plans against them. "Leave the tech to me," the princess said. "You focus on defense. Others may arrive unexpectedly." Ghost nodded. He could feel the bond guiding his instincts, alerting him to subtle shifts in the air, the faintest footstep, the smallest vibration.
As the princess worked her magic on the systems, he took a position by the doorway, ready to defend them.
Minutes passed. Then a group of hunters approached, their movements swift and precise. Ghost's pulse quickened, but the bond gave him clarity. He moved like lightning, striking first, striking hard. His combat was human ingenuity at its peak. Unpredictable, fluid, and effective. Every move was calculated, every strike turning the hunter's advantage against them. The princess worked in tandem, her energy manipulating the systems, creating diversions, and enhancing Ghost's abilities. Together, they were unstoppable. Hunters who had once believed themselves superior found themselves outmatched by a human-alien partnership they could not comprehend. Hours passed, and the compound was in chaos. Ghost and the princess moved through the halls, disabling communications, capturing intelligence, and leaving disarray in their wake. The hunters' arrogance had been their downfall. They had underestimated the combination of human adaptability and alien foresight. Finally, they reached the central archive, the heart of the hunter's operation. Ghost's eyes scanned the room, filled with data crystals, communication logs, and strategic plans. Here lay the proof of everything the hunters had attempted, every mission they had orchestrated, every target they had hunted. The princess extended her hand, her energy sweeping across the crystals. They pulsed, then opened, revealing layers of encrypted information. Ghost felt the bond pull gently, guiding him to the critical files. He copied what he could, storing the intelligence for later use. Every detail was valuable. The hunters' movements, weaknesses, and strategies now lay bare before them. But then, a sudden alarm rang out. The hunters had realized the intrusion. Ghost's eyes narrowed. "Time to move," he muttered. The princess nodded, extending her hand once more. A wave of energy pulsed outward, masking their exit, and creating a path through the compound. Ghost followed, moving with precision, every step guided by instinct and the subtle pull of their bond. They emerged into the desert once more, the compound behind them in chaos. Ghost paused, breathing heavily, and looked at the princess. "We did it," he said, though exhaustion weighed on him. "We've got what we need, but they'll be coming after us harder than ever." She nodded, her eyes reflecting both pride and warning. "Yes, and next time, you will need to anticipate not just their moves, but their minds. The hunters are relentless. They learn, they adapt, and so must you." Ghost allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humans had survived worse, had overcome impossible odds, and had done so through ingenuity, courage, and relentless determination. Now, with the bond guiding him and the princess at his side, he realized that survival was no longer enough. They could fight back, strike preemptively, and shape the battlefield on their own terms. The desert stretched before them, silent and vast. Ghost felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was more than a soldier. He was a strategist, a survivor, and now part of something greater. The hunters had underestimated humans for centuries, and he would prove once again why they were never to be counted out. The princess placed a hand on his arm, a simple gesture that carried profound meaning. "Together, we can change the course of this hunt," she said softly. "Together, we are stronger than they ever imagined." Ghost looked at her, a faint smile forming despite his exhaustion. "Then let's make them remember what humans are capable of," he said, and with that they moved forward, into the desert, into the unknown, ready to turn the hunters' pursuit into their own victory. The bond between them was no longer subtle. It was a force, a connection that made them formidable. Ghost had survived countless hunts, but now, with the princess at his side, he understood the true meaning of strength, unity, strategy, and the relentless human spirit. As the suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, Ghost and the princess vanished into the twilight, leaving confusion and defeat in their wake. The hunters would regroup, they would strike back. But Ghost was ready. He had humans' ingenuity, the princess's power, and a bond that made them both unstoppable. And in that quiet moment, amidst the endless desert, Ghost allowed himself a thought he had not entertained in a long time. He was no longer just surviving. He was shaping the battle. He was becoming a force the universe had not seen coming. The hunt was far from over. But for the first time, Ghost felt that perhaps the hunters were the ones who were truly being hunted. The hunters had regrouped, stronger and faster than before. Word of Ghost's intrusion into their central compound had spread through their ranks, and the elite force assigned to kill him had grown tenfold. Their armor glinted like obsidian under the twin suns, weapons humming with deadly precision, and their minds sharp with vengeance. Ghost could sense their determination even before he saw them. The hunters were relentless, and this time they were prepared to annihilate anything in their path. The desert stretched endlessly before him, harsh and unforgiving. Ghost stood atop a ridge, scanning the horizon with sharp, calculating eyes. Behind him, the alien princess moved with grace, her energy flickering faintly as she prepared for the oncoming battle. She did not need to speak. Ghost felt the subtle pull of their bond, guiding him, urging him to anticipate and adapt. "They're coming," he muttered, already calculating angles, distances, and timing. Humans had faced overwhelming odds before, and they had always survived because they could think, improvise, and act unpredictably. Ghost was about to prove that once again. The first wave of hunters appeared, charging over the dunes in synchronized formation. Ghost crouched behind a jagged rock, his modified rifle ready, but he did not attack yet. Humans had an advantage aliens could rarely anticipate: patience. He waited, observing patterns, reading the subtle movements of the hunters, and preparing for the perfect strike. The princess hovered beside him, her presence quiet yet powerful. Her eyes glowed faintly, reflecting both intelligence and determination. Ghost had learned to trust the bond, allowing him to anticipate attacks before they happened, to move before the hunters expected it, and to strike with precision that no alien could match. The first shots rang out, alien energy weapons tearing through the sand, but Ghost was ready. He rolled to the side, returning fire with calculated bursts that struck the hunters' flanks. They faltered, momentarily confused by the humans' unpredictable tactics. He used the chaos to his advantage, darting across the open desert with the princess guiding him, avoiding every blast, every trap, every ambush. Hours passed, a blur of motion, sand, and fire. Ghost moved like water flowing through the battlefield, striking when the hunters least expected it. The princess manipulated energy fields, creating shields and diversions, amplifying his human ingenuity with her alien power. Together they became a force the hunters had never anticipated. Despite the chaos, Ghost noticed the smallest details: shifts in the sand that indicated hidden traps, faint vibrations that revealed flanking units, and subtle cues in the hunters' formation that suggested their leader's location. Humans had long relied on observation and intuition, and Ghost's mind worked like a living weapon, turning every environmental cue into advantage. Finally, he spotted the leader of the hunters, a massive figure, taller and more imposing than the others, moving with calculated precision. Ghost's pulse quickened. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He would not just survive. He would end this hunt and prove that human ingenuity, combined with adaptability, was a force no alien could fully predict. "Stay behind me," he said to the princess. She nodded, her glow intensifying. Together they moved through the dunes, using shadows, rocks, and energy diversions to approach the leader unnoticed. Every step was synchronized, every movement precise. The bond between them guided the action, blending human instinct with alien perception into a single, unstoppable rhythm. They reached the leader's position. Ghost took a deep breath, his mind racing with calculations. The human's advantage was unpredictability, and he would use it to its fullest. With a sudden explosive move, he leapt from cover, striking the leader's flank with a series of precise shots. The alien staggered, surprised by the human's audacity. The leader roared, a sound that shook the desert sands. Ghost rolled away, firing again, using every trick he knew to disorient the hunter. The princess joined the fray, her energy forming barriers and offensive pulses that forced the leader to split attention between two threats, something he had never expected. The battle raged, energy blasts lighting up the desert night, sand flying in chaotic patterns, and the hunters faltering under the combined assault. Ghost's movements were fluid, unpredictable, human ingenuity at its peak, while the princess amplified his effectiveness, creating openings and exploiting weaknesses. At a critical moment, Ghost realized that the battle could not be won by brute force alone. He needed to outthink the leader, to turn the hunter's own tactics against him. Observing the patterns, he noticed a flaw. The leader relied on repeated strategies, predictable even in its complexity. Ghost adapted instantly. He baited the leader toward a narrow canyon, leading him through a gauntlet of energy traps the princess had subtly manipulated. The hunter's weapons were powerful, but the confined space limited their effectiveness. Ghost moved like water, striking and dodging, drawing the leader into a position where escape was impossible. The final strike came not from overwhelming force, but from strategy. Ghost disabled the leader's weapon systems using a combination of improvised devices and alien energy interference from the princess. The leader faltered, and with a final precise shot, Ghost struck the vital point he had identified, ending the threat. The leader fell, and the remaining hunters scattered, leaderless and defeated. Ghost stood, breathing heavily, scanning the battlefield. The desert was quiet now, the echoes of battle fading into the wind. He felt the bond pulsing softly, the princess's presence steady and unwavering. Humans had survived against impossible odds, and now they had triumphed, not by strength alone, but by intelligence, adaptability, and courage. The princess approached, her eyes glowing softly. "You did it," she said. "You proved what I have always known. Humans are not to be underestimated. And you are extraordinary." Ghost shook his head, exhaustion and relief mixing in equal measure. "I survived because I had to," he said. "Not because I was extraordinary. Humans survive because we refuse to give up, because we adapt, because we think when others would panic." Her eyes softened. "And that is why I claimed your soul. Not because of skill alone, but because of what you represent. Hope, ingenuity, courage. The ability to change the course of events no matter how impossible the odds seem." For the first time, Ghost allowed himself to truly relax. The hunt was over. He had survived, adapted, and triumphed. He had proven that humans could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast even the most superior foes. The desert stretched before them, endless and quiet under the fading suns. Ghost looked at the princess, a faint smile forming on his lips. "We made it," he said softly. "Yes," she replied, "and this is only the beginning. The universe is vast, filled with challenges and dangers, but together we are stronger than any obstacle. Together we will shape the future." Ghost nodded, understanding finally what the bond meant. Humans had survived because of courage, ingenuity, and determination. Now, with the princess by his side, they were more than survivors. They were architects of their own destiny. They moved through the desert, side by side, leaving the battlefield behind, and for the first time in a long while, Ghost felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. The hunters had been defeated, human ingenuity had triumphed, and the bond with the princess had transformed him from a lone soldier into something greater, a symbol of resilience and strength. As night fell and stars began to shine above the desert, Ghost looked up, feeling the quiet pull of the universe. He knew challenges would come again, that the hunters might return, or that new threats would emerge. But he also knew that humans had an edge no one could take away, the ability to think, adapt, and endure against all odds. The princess touched his arm gently, and he felt the familiar pull of their bond. It was no longer a strange influence. It was a strength, a guiding force that connected them across mind and spirit. Ghost smiled faintly, the weight of battle lifting from his shoulders. "We survived," he said. "We won." "Yes," she replied. "And now the universe will know what humans are capable of, not because of weapons or strength or numbers, but because of courage, ingenuity, and the unwillingness to surrender." Ghost nodded. The sun had set, casting a soft glow across the dunes, and for the first time, he allowed himself to hope. Humans had survived worse, and they had thrived against impossible odds. With the princess by his side, he knew they could face anything. And in that quiet desert, under the stars, Ghost understood the truth. Survival was only the beginning. Humans could rise, adapt, and change the fate of worlds. And he, the soldier known as Ghost, had not only survived the hunt, but had become the spark that would inspire hope, courage, and ingenuity across the stars. The desert wind whispered around them, carrying the promise of new adventures, new challenges, and new victories. Ghost looked at the princess, and she nodded, understanding without words. Together they would face the universe, not as hunted and hunter, but as partners, bonded by fate, strategy, and the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. And as they walked into the night, leaving the remnants of the hunters behind, Ghost felt a rare certainty settle within him. He was human. He was coming. He was resilient. And now, with the princess claiming his soul, he was unstoppable. The hunt had ended. The battle was won. But the story of Ghost and the human spirit he represented was only beginning.